was 2:17 a.m., and the warehouse was silent except for the hum of the lights. I reached for my keys and froze. There was a sixth key on the ring. I've carried the same 5 keys for 3 years, which means someone had to add this while I was here, alone. My name's Paul, and I've worked night security at this distribution center long enough to know every lock, every door, every noise this place makes. The job is simple. Patrol the aisles, check the dock doors, keep the place sealed until morning. Nothing changes without paperwork, especially not my keys. Most nights I could do the route with my eyes closed. The sound of the refrigeration units in the back was my clock, a low, steady drone that never stopped. Every 30 minutes, I'd circle back to the front office to log my rounds. It had been a regular night. I was walking the floor, doing my usual check of the locks, when I took out my key ring to open a side access door. Under my flashlight, the new key's brass looked worn, like it had been used for decades. Stamped faintly on its head were the letters and numbers B17. The thing is, our building sections stop at B15. There is no B17. I told myself it was just a mistake, maybe an old key left over from before the remodel. I slid it back onto the ring and finished my rounds, telling myself I'd bring it up in the morning. When my shift ended, I asked the supervisor about the extra key. He frowned, said it must be an error, and told me to just hang on to it until he checked the records. 2 nights later, halfway down the southern storage wing, I spotted a locked metal door I'd never noticed before. Its faded stenciling read exactly what I didn't want to see. B17. The air near the door was colder, but not like the rest of the refrigerated storage. It had a sharp, metallic edge to it. From behind the door came a faint clicking, slow, deliberate, like someone turning a knob back and forth. I stood there for a moment, debating whether I should just keep walking. Every instinct told me not to touch that lock, but my hand moved anyway. I slid the brass key into the cylinder, and it turned without resistance. The door swung open to a short hallway lit by a single buzzing fluorescent tube. At the far end was another door, heavy, steel, and windowless. I started toward the second door, curious and uneasy at the same time. I was just a few feet away when the door behind me swung shut. The latch clicked into place, trapping me inside the hallway. I walked the rest of the way down the hallway to the steel door. Hanging on the wall beside it was a clipboard. Each page was filled with neat columns, names, employee ID numbers, and dates. I recognized almost all of them from old termination logs. Their firings were always strange to me. The majority of them were good, loyal employees, and then the next day they were gone. No one ever knew the reason. At the bottom of the list was a fresh entry, my name, tonight's date, and the exact time I'd found the 6th key. That's when I realized the clicking had stopped. The silence pressed in until I could hear my own breathing. Then, faint, steady footsteps began moving toward me from the other side of the steel door. I rattled the steel door's handle, but it was locked from the inside. I turned back, ran to the first door, and slammed my shoulder into it, trying to escape. Nothing. The footsteps stopped. Then a voice called my name from the other side of the steel door. My chest tightened, panic taking over. I started pounding on the first door, yelling for someone to open it. The last thing I remember was my vision tunneling and the sound of my own ragged breathing as the panic attack hit. When I came to, I was in the break room. Sunlight was bleeding in through the blinds. My keyring had only 5 keys again. The 6th was gone, as if it had never existed. That evening, just before my next shift, I got a text from the other night guard. He said he'd overheard management talking about my termination in the break room, but didn't want to say more over the phone. He told me to check my employee profile before coming in. I logged in from home, and my picture had been replaced with a blank gray silhouette. My job title was gone. In its place was a single word: B-17. At 3:12 a.m., the office printer whirred to life in the empty lobby. A single page slid out, the job log showing it came from floor 5. Our building only has 4 floors, and I was the only one inside the building. My name's Alex, and I'm the overnight security guard for a mid-sized corporate office downtown. I work the whole building solo, doing hourly rounds. It's all glass walls and bright lighting during the day, but at night it's dim, quiet, and every small sound carries. My route is always the same. Start in the lobby, check the main copier printer near reception, move up floor by floor, and finish on the 4th before taking the elevator back down. I make sure to pass that printer twice a night. That matters because it's one of the only devices that stays powered on overnight, and if it's running, someone's sending it jobs. One night, on my first pass, the printer's display was lit up. I checked the display. The newest entry in the job history read, "Print, Origin, Floor 5. Even though I know there are only 4 floors in the building, I looked at the directory on the wall. 4 floors, no more. Always 4. I figured it was a glitch. Maybe floor 5 was some old network name left over from before I started, or maybe it was a printer brought in from another building. I pulled the page from the tray. It was blank. I tossed it in recycling and continued my rounds. An hour later, after finishing my walk on the 4th floor and riding the elevator back down, I passed reception again. Another blank page sat in the tray. Same origin. Floor 5. This time, the timestamp showed it had printed while I was upstairs, with no one else in the building who could have sent it. The only thing above the 4th floor is the roof, and the stairwell to it is locked at all times. If someone had gone up there, the alarm would have tripped, but I hadn't heard a thing. On my next loop, I stopped at the copier and waited. After a minute, it whirred to life. A single page slid out. This one wasn't blank. It had an address printed in plain black type. Room 502. I scanned the building directory again. No 5th floor. No room 502. My radio was silent. I decided to walk the 4th floor again just to be sure. It was empty, every office locked, every light off. The roof door was secure. I headed back downstairs. Back at the copier, I logged into the admin menu. The originating device was listed as Printer 5F2, a unit not in our inventory. The last 10 jobs had all come from it, all between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. Several of the jobs had office numbers listed that didn't exist. But 2 of the jobs matched unused storage rooms I knew were locked. At exactly 4:41 a.m., another page came through. This one had a date and time. Today's date, 5:02 a.m., 21 minutes from now. And a location, lobby. Thinking it might be a network trick or a prank by an employee, I took the elevator down toward the basement server room. I just stepped off on the lower level when my radio clicked on with an open mic. Faint rustling, then the sound of a printer starting up directly above me on the 1st floor. I ran back upstairs to the lobby. Another page was in the tray. Same timestamp, 5:02 a.m. But this time, instead of a location, it had my name on it. At 5:02 exactly, the front door's motion sensors tripped. The security cameras caught a man in dark clothes stepping into the lobby from the street, walking straight toward reception. He stopped just out of camera range from the printer and stood there for 30 seconds before leaving the way he came. I stayed frozen at the desk, watching him on the monitors as he disappeared from view. When I checked the exterior feed, He was already gone, like he'd known exactly where the cameras wouldn't see him. The street outside was empty. The next day, IT confirmed the print jobs weren't coming from the network. They were being sent from a laptop connecting wirelessly from inside the building. They never found the laptop. I thought about going to the police, but without a face or a name, I knew I had nothing they could use. For the next 3 nights, even after the locks were changed, the printer still came to life around the same time. And on the 4th night, the page waiting for me didn't have my name anymore. It had my home address. There's a waiting room on the 4th floor of our hospital that's been sealed for years. No patients, no visitors, no reason to go in. But every night I work, the light inside is on. And last week, I saw a shadow move across it. I work night security in a mid-sized hospital. My shift runs from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. when most of the building feels hollow. The hum of the vents echoes in the halls, every sound carrying too far. The 4th floor is surgical recovery, quiet except for a handful of patients and the occasional nurse making rounds. The old waiting room sits at the far end of the hallway, directly across from the supply closet I check every shift. The door is heavy, with a frosted glass panel. It's supposed to be locked at all times. For months, it was just another part of the scenery. I'd walk past, see the faint glow through the glass, and never think twice. I figured it was a light someone forgot to switch off years ago. In an empty building at night, you stop questioning the little things. One Thursday around 2 a.m., on my 2nd round, I noticed the glow looked dimmer, almost flickering. The thing is, those lights don't have a dimmer. They're either on or off. I kept walking, telling myself it was a dying bulb. I didn't have keys for that room anyway, but I found myself looking at it again on the way back, and for just a split second, I thought I saw movement. The next night, I caught it clearly, a shadow shifting across the frosted glass, the kind of movement that only happens when someone is inside. I stopped halfway down the hall, listening. The air vents droned overhead, but underneath that, I thought I heard the faint sound of fabric rustling. There was nothing in the night log about anyone working in there. From then on, I checked the door every time I passed. Some nights the light seemed brighter, others dimmer. Twice I heard what sounded like a chair creaking inside. Each time my footsteps slowed without meaning to, and I'd feel that prickling awareness you get when someone's eyes are on you. A week later, I was alone on the floor during my last round. The hallway was dead silent. I reached for the handle, and it turned. The door wasn't locked. I opened it an inch, and the light shut off instantly. I closed it fast and stepped back, radio already in my hand. I called my partner, told him there was someone in the 4th floor waiting room. He got there in under 2 minutes. By the time we tried to go back in together, the door was locked again. The room was empty. Later that night, one of the nurses told me the story. A year ago, a man had been living in that room for weeks without anyone knowing. He'd slip in during visiting hours, blend in, and disappear upstairs when the crowds thinned out. They caught him only because someone walked in looking for extra chairs. 2 nights later, after we'd already cleared the floor earlier in the shift, I came back up for another pass. The glow was back, brighter than before, almost like someone wanted it noticed. I stayed at the nurse's station while my partner came up the back stairwell. It was a long, silent wait until I saw him walking a man toward the elevator, mid-30s, scruffy, wearing a volunteer vest we didn't issue. The man kept his head down, but when they passed me, he turned just enough for me to see he was smiling. They found out he'd been using a side entrance with a broken lock, hiding out in that room between shifts. The light was his signal that it was safe to stay. The lock was fixed. Patrols increased. For a week, the glass stayed dark. But during my 2 a.m. round last Friday, the glow was back. The shadow wasn't moving toward the door this time. It was standing still, facing the hallway, watching me walk away